All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Biking with Kids, the ultimate adventure. You think that you're an adventure cyclist? Unless you've bicycled with kids, you are wrong. You are an amateur. Bicycling with kids is the ultimate adventure. And if you haven't done it yet, we're here to help you find out how to make that happen. My name is Ashley. I have been cycling for many, many years, but my ultimate adventure happened when I had my daughter 7 years ago, and I also have a son who is 4, and you can see here right in the middle, I have an emerging rider and a beginning rider. And we are kind of straddling the adventure of having those two levels of riding going on at the same time. And Mary Beth, I'm gonna toggle it over to you.
All right, great. Hey everyone, I'm Mary Beth. I have also been riding for a long time on my own and with other people's children before having my own. I've worked with a lot of high schoolers and middle schoolers leading trips and teaching, and it feels like a whole different ballgame now having my own kid. I also have a 4-year-old who is more of a pre-rider. She gets around on her strider like crazy, and because we're weird bike people, she also has her own three-wheeled cargo bike, but is not yet on her own two wheels. So that's where we're at, and mostly getting out with her in our cargo bike and cruising around these days. I will pass it to Kimberly.
Great. Hi, I'm Kimberly. I have been biking with kids. I get the award here for longevity. My kids are 22 and 18 and a half, and I have been riding with them since they were old enough to sit up safely in a burley with a helmet on. That was sort of our threshold. So long time, lots of fun, lots of meltdowns, lots of snacks, lots of stops. And that picture was actually taken 12 years ago when my daughter was 6. That was probably one of the bike to work days when I was riding her to Garfield Montessori across town. So
All right. So we were talking a little bit earlier, and we were saying that this minute one should actually be minute 60. This is so much fun because it takes you at least 60 minutes to get out the door to get on your adventure. And you can almost guarantee that about 5 minutes after the this is so much fun, it turns into a I need a snack, or I'm tired, or this is hard. And it really comes down to setting up realistic expectations for yourself, because we're all these awesome driven cyclists, right? And we want that for our kids. And sometimes we have a hard time recognizing that they might not be there with us yet. They might not be ready for that endurance cycling, which really for them is like a mile would be an endurance cycling event, right? But I'm hoping, I'm looking at this from my point of view of having an emerging rider and a not quite like a pre-rider yet. I'm hoping, Kimberly, that this is going to be something that gets a little bit easier, and maybe eventually they're dragging me along the trail. So speaking to those pre-riders, Mary Beth and I, we both have some pre-riders currently. So this is very fresh in our mind. And they come with a lot of equipment. Mary Beth, what's your favorite equipment for your pre-riders?
My favorite equipment now is currently our front loading cargo bike, probably. We've had a couple iterations, and my wife actually had knee surgery about a year ago, and getting an electric cargo bike was a game changer for us. It, lets us treat everything like a car, and we just toss everything in there with my kid. We can put her bike in there for when she wants to go along for the ride. And at this point, I think anything that lets her do a little bit of riding on her own, whether that's for like a block or to the mailbox or to a friend's house, and then have a way to easily tuck her and all of her stuff in another bike and carry on her way is key. So that's our big favorite thing right now.
We always wanted to get into the cargo bike world, but we never quite did. And one of our favorite things is that ride along, like the co-pilot, like you can see down here with my husband and our son Finnegan. We love that co-pilot seat for are almost emerging rider, like still a pre-rider, but not quite a baby, because it really lets them take an active role in the riding. It's almost like they're like, we say, hey, go hit the nos, and then we go really fast, and it's really exciting. What do you think, Kimberly? What was your favorite thing for your pre-riders? I know you have to dig deep back to that memory,
yeah,
right?
so we had a Burley trailer. That was really sort of the only option back then. And the Burley was great. And we got a two-seater Burley, even when we just had one kid, because we knew we'd need to bring stuffed animals and snacks and whatnot. And that was definitely a good decision. To have extra space, because as we'll talk about further, you gotta bring all the stuff.
Yeah, and it really is like, when I think like about my essential item for riding with my kids, we could leave everything else, but if we don't bring something like snacks or hydration that's not just water, like something that keeps them motivated and going, it could stop us in our tracks. Like, we need that for them. It's like the mental support of, all my basic needs are being met, I have a snack.
And I never thought of myself as a parent who would be into bribery. And I try not to look at it that way, but gummy bears have got us farther than like anything else I ever thought would. And then when I think about it, it's really just reframing it and thinking about like what gets me out the door, like what gets me going an extra mile. And for me, it's honestly usually snacks and beverages as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, don't be afraid to use what works for you.
Yeah, and I think that, like, so coming from my mental health perspective, I'm a counselor, and I think about when I'm going into the unknown, what is going to be my, I can do anything with blank. I can do anything if my basic needs are being met. And if that means that I know where my next meal is coming from, and it's a really good one, even if gummy bears don't technically count as a meal, then I can do most things. And I think that counts for our kids too. And we have to take that in consideration. So, when we're as parents thinking like, oh, but is that bribery? Just change that thinking to, no, I'm meeting basic needs. It's no big deal. And when we're thinking about clothing for these little ones, finding helmet fits, depending on if you're putting them in a chariot or putting them in a co-pilot or front loader, that changes a little bit, right? Because putting them in a Burley with a helmet, you have to really think about having like a really comfortable fit, right, Kimberly?
Well, and what we found is, you put the kid in the Burley, and the back part of the Burley would push the kid's head forward like this. So what we did is we had this pillow that was just the right size to basically like a lumbar pillow, basically to put behind them, so it would get them away from the seat a little bit, and then their helmet would fit better. And then you could still use the harness and whatnot. So that was our trick that made things much more tolerable.
Yeah, and that is an interesting thing to think about. And now, even they've come up with tricks even since my kids have come along, different inserts for the Burleys that didn't necessarily exist when my daughter was a baby. This thing didn't exist, but now when my son was a baby, it did. So there's like an actual insert seat for we're saying Burley, but it could be any of the tow behind trailers. And there is like an infant insert. And there are different ratings for these. Like, they might say, okay, here's your infant insert, but it's only good once the child can sit unassisted and has really good head control. And that's really up to you as a parent to decide, well, am I going to follow that? Or am I going to decide, well, I need to take my child along, and this is the way I'm going to do it. And I'm not advocating for one or the other. You are the parent. You make the decision about what your needs are and what your comforts are with towing your child in a bike, because a lot of these taking your child along, like PreRider strategies, are tricky when you're riding with a child who's younger than one. And so that's like a whole nother, I feel like that's a whole nother presentation. I mean, that's when we most need it, right? Like, I need to be myself again. I need to be able to take my kids on a bike. Is there anything else on this slide presenters that we wanted to address before moving on to our emerging riders?
No, I think you're both
Yep,
good to go
good
ahead.
to go. All right. Okay, so you're going to see that a lot of our emerging riders slide is the same, especially experiences. Like you need to bring more snacks and continue to have fun destinations and play breaks and support safe riding. But then we get into fun things like, oh, what do I do when my kid wants to ride their bike but doesn't want to ride their bike for the entire time they need to be traveling? So, Mary Beth, I know you have some strategies you've been working on.
I do, and I think just to emphasize too, I've seen people do all kinds of cool creative things. So, similar to what you were saying earlier, find what works for you. We're lucky to have a cargo bike that we can toss a bunch of stuff in. I know you can speak more to the toe straps specifically, but I've also seen people, rig up their own straps or figure out how to carry a spider in a pannier. So I think rather than focusing on specifics, it's just helpful to say, like, don't feel like it's bad to experiment and find what works for you. You might have some rides where it's not very fun and you're carrying way more stuff than you wanted to lug around, but you'll probably figure it out for yourself. So work with what you have, I think would be my tip.
And something that just came to me, piggybacking on what you were saying, Mary Beth, is, if you can borrow someone's equipment and try it out, because I look at this picture that I put on here of Frankie with the trail-a-bike thing, and we bought that. I think maybe we had used a different one and we thought this was like a better one, and we ended up hating it. It just didn't work for us. And we ended up getting a road tandem and putting crank arm shorteners on it. So it's a device that goes on the crank arm and it makes the crank way shorter for the kiddo and allows the kiddo to actually pedal. And we flipped the handlebars around so she could reach them. And that was much more comfortable for everyone than the trail-a-bike thing. So if you can try out different things before you commit, I think that's a great way to go.
I think, social media or parent groups is a great outlet for that. I know we have, Kimberly and I live near Denver, and there are shops where you can demo that kind of stuff. But, reaching out to other parents to try it before you get it is an awesome idea.
So can I ask, what is a toe strap? Is it like literally like you're towing your kid when they're riding their bike?
So there is this I've been very curious because we are in this weird space right now where my daughter, she can take off. She's pretty quick. And our son is just getting too big for our co-pilot, and we don't really want to tow him back behind the bike anymore. We want to start encouraging him to use his pedal bike, and he'll rip on his strider, but if we're on a straight road, he just can't keep up, right? So there is this invention, and I'm thinking about if anybody does snowboarding with their little ones, there are these like bungees. There's almost like a toe strap bungee, like a flexible bungee that you can connect to your kid. And on snowboarding, it's like this retractable leash, which is kind of like low risk because they're in front of you and you're just kind of going slow behind them and flying them kind of like a kite. But I've seen recently on there's this thing that you can attach them to the back of your bike with one of these bungee straps, and it's not a retractable thing, and you're in far less control. But I'm really curious. I was kind of
have you not used one?
I've not used one. I'm really curious about it, and I think it really depends on your child's comfort level with balancing. So I would see this, like something that I want to try. This comes down to like being creative and trusting your gut and experimenting. This is my next experiment. I would like to try to use one of these contraptions that's being advertised to tow my kid on his strider behind my bike and just give him a little alley-oop so we can get a little bit further down the trail until he's ready to start ripping it again or down the tow path. if we were riding on straight path. But I have some reservations, like what if we're going and then he takes a tumble? All these things that we worry about as parents, like, are they ready for it? Is it going to work? Is it going to be horrible? Are they never going to want to ride their bike again? Oh no.
We can do a plug. I've seen pictures of Steven, the head of rodeo. I think I've seen pictures of him using them with his 5-year-old. I think this is youngest.
Yeah.
We can send people his way if they're wondering. Maybe he can do a little. He films stuff all the time, right? He can put something up on that, right?
Yeah, I was hoping that somebody would, like, I'm curious about this. I was hoping somebody would have some experience with the toe strap. But we also use like for our kid Sherpa strategies that's similar to the toe strap, we use a daisy chain, and we will be riding on flat road when the roads are closed. Like down here in DC, the roads are closed on the weekends near us. So, and they're open to just pedestrians and bike riders and scooters and rollerblading and all that. And we will head down the road and my daughter takes off and my son is like cruising along and then he gets frustrated and tired. And so we daisy chain his strider to a backpack and put him on a co-pilot. And that's pretty handy. It doesn't take anything more than just like being slightly uncomfortable with a strider on your back while you have a toddler between your legs. But it's again, it comes down to being creative. And I would say that the difference between, like, in clothing between emerging riders and pre-riders, with pre-riders, they are not doing a whole lot, right? So they are likely, if it's cold, to get chillier. So you have to think about layers. And if they're emerging riders, they're going to get hot faster when it's cold out. So you have to think about more, like, what would you do for yourself, right? Is that what you feel like when you're thinking about emerging riders? Yeah. Okay, now big kids. I have a little bit of experience with big kids with my experience with racing, but I feel like Mary Beth and Kimberly, I think you've had a lot more experience with the big kids in the riding of bikes. So I'm going to lean on you for this one.
I'd be curious, Kimberly, if you want to start just more of the parent perspective, and I can jump in with some other things, but I think you probably have the most to add.
Well, our kids learn, we taught them how to ride a bike and they became very adept at that. But it was important for them to learn like good safety practices and bike handling skills and whatnot. So we found a local bike shop that ran a camp. The Bike Depot in Park Hill ran a camp that took kids out riding, and they learned to change flat and they learned to do all kinds of stuff. That was huge. And then when my kids got a little older, we kind of told them, you have to go to cyclocross camp. Just as we just want you to learn basic handling skills. And I was really into cyclocross. My husband had done some cyclocross. My husband and I both had raced. We're racing, when our kids were growing up. So they both went happily to cyclocross camp and learned a ton of skills. One kid, I think, did one race and was like, okay, that's enough. I don't want to do it. Neither of my kids are interested in racing. They're just not competitive that way. And then my younger daughter, actually, we never engaged with USAC, other than like cyclocross camp. I think one kid actually went to road camp as well. But our younger daughter ended up going to this camp in northern Michigan for many years. And with each age group, you did a different off camp trip. And she did a 10-day bikepacking trip with I think she was probably 12-year-olds. And they rode like 258 miles up into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And carried all of their stuff and just learned like great skills. The funny thing now is like that kid, my younger kid who was in that picture, has no interest in riding a bike. Today she went to Lululemon, that Lululemon outlet in Castle Rock, and bought what looked like bike shorts. She sent me a picture. I'm like, those look like biking shorts. She's like, yeah, they kind of are. And I said, well, maybe you'll start riding a bike. She's like, no, she's actually has a bike she's going to take to college next year. She's like, I'll ride my bike when I get to college, when I have to go to class, but just not interested. But she knows how to ride a bike. She knows basic stuff. It's great. My older daughter is 22 and graduating from college, lives in Portland, and does not have a driver's license and only rides a bike. So it's sort of interesting. I think the big thing is like expose your kids to lots of different biking options, biking with families, biking at camp. If you're, our high school had a mountain bike team. Neither of my kids wanted to be on it. But just expose them to all of that and they'll figure it out. And just my thing was like, you need, just like with swimming, like you need to learn basic skills. It's like a life skill. It's like a safety skill, so forth. So that's I'm not sure if that exactly answered the question, but that was my experience.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to look at it, because we don't need our kids to love the things we love as much as we love them necessarily. Yeah. But I think making that point about it being a skill is such a great point. Like if you're a kid, that's how you're going to get around, and that's how you're going to like be free to like go out with your friends or get to school. So I love the idea of sending them to those camps and making sure that they know those things, even if that's not what they want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for this next big thing in my kids' life of exposing them to these things and getting them into like the, because we're a big cyclocross family also. So seeing them either take to the juniors racing or completely reject it. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Well, you know what I did? I made sure to teach my kids how to give me a hand up, a water bottle, so they could stand there with the bottle, not be afraid of it. I could ride by and grab it. That was all right.
If you're not going to race, at least you're going to be useful.
Right.
Yeah. I love that because it is a community, and that's the big thing about cycling that is a huge takeaway for me, is that this is a community, and I love that about cycling. It's like, oh, you ride bikes, we're friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's all I need to know. You're a bike rider, I'm a bike rider. So when we're thinking about teaching kids to ride, oh my gosh, it is a journey. It is a journey, not a destination. And the hugest thing for me is just recognizing that just because I'm ready for my child to ride a bike, it does not mean that they are even remotely prepared for that or willing to try.
Yeah, agreed. And we have my kids bike out as like a, and she's tempted by it every once in a while, but I think is so much more likely to pick something up if we don't mention it or don't force it. And I was thinking about how similar this was to the big kid slide for me with the final point. My kid is stubborn, and I've worked with other people's kids as middle schoolers and older kids. And just this point of having someone who is not you help your kid learn a new skill, I think felt much more real to me once I had my own kid and have seen other people try to work with her versus me. So I don't know your all's experience with that, but I think that's always something helpful to keep in mind, is like whether it's a camp if your kids are a little bit older or a friend or whoever it might be, like that could be a cool connection for your kid to have with someone else in your life, and maybe more successful than having a parent be that person.
Yeah, your buddy can tell your child the exact same thing that you told them, and your child will be like, oh, that's amazing, I haven't ever thought about that. And you'll be like, I just said that 5 minutes ago. I said that exact same thing. And that's why it really comes down to having that community, right? Mm-hmm. And giving them, recognizing, what does your child like to do with cycling? Is there something that they're connecting to? And I think earlier, Mary Beth, there was a photo very similar, or it's coming up later, but a very similar photo to this photo of my daughter working on cleaning her little juvie, mm-hmm. and seeing them taking the care. And what is, their current passion is putting stickers on their bike and cleaning it up. Great. Support it. And eventually maybe they'll be doing something that you're hoping they will do.
Yeah, for sure. Stickers, bags, bells.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We accessorize.
Yep. Letting it make it letting them make it their own. So I haven't done this since this photo was taken back when my daughter was a year old. But being able to get out of town and have adventures with your kids is pretty exciting for you. Exhausting for parents, right? But exciting and fun, and kids, I don't think they ever forget it. You know, if they think about all the stuff that's going on, they're like, oh yeah, that one time where we did that cool thing. And if we as parents can provide a cool experience with bikes, then that's pretty special. So this photo that I have is we just went down the C&O Canal from DC, maybe 5 or 10 miles, and we camped for one night and stayed in a tent and then rode back to our cars. And that was an adventure. And it's one that, even though she was like an itty bitty when this happened, um, it's something we still talk about.
Yeah, and that's huge and amazing to me. You know, I think that the miles that you ride with a kid and doing that probably feels like far more than you would do on your own. You know, it's something I have yet to take on, and would love to hear from other parents who have.
So MB, I'll tell you our little secret we did a bike packing trip, an overnight. And Frankie was a teenager. Isabella, I think, was already out of the house. So she might've been 15 or 16. I don't know. But we rode to Bear Creek State Park and rented one of those cabins. So Frankie rode her bike that she rode on this bike packing trip. She had panniers, like loaded up with stuff. I rode. Ken rode out from his office. We stayed in. Hey, Josie.
Oh, we have a guest.
We stayed in the little cabin that was heated. We did this like in winter, I think. Maybe not winter. Maybe it was like, I don't know when it was. Spring. It was chilly. But the cabins are heated, and they have like 2 sets of double-sized bunk beds. So you can put a bunch of kids in there, or a bunch of people. But we just did an overnight. We rode into Morrison, had dinner there. We cooked breakfast the next morning. And then I said, Frankie, let's ride this other way home. And I had her go through Golden, which was much longer. And I know on the other slide, we talked about like destination, like having a destination. Mm-hmm. And we stopped at this great ice cream shop in Golden, and I swear we split like the biggest banana split ever. And that's what got us then back another 20 miles to our house from Golden. So making it easy like that was super easy, because we just took our sleeping bags and stayed in a cabin and had dinner out. But it was this, again, I was doing this with an older kid, but it would be perfect with a younger kiddo too.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think part
of
it was
bike path. It was all on the bike path.
Yeah. And we've thought about that with Cherry Creek. I think part of what's tricky is sometimes I feel like I'm almost in this in-between age where she doesn't want to sit long enough in a cargo bike or in a Burley or whatever it may be, but isn't quite there enough. And I feel, and we did do it when she was little, you know, we had other stuff going on, but I feel like within a year, like when she's old enough to like get out and ride on her own bike for a little bit and can have that balance, that we're ready for it.
Yeah. And I do think like the planning for fun, Kimberly, that you were talking about, like that, sharing that ice cream, again, that really can get you through to the next piece.
Yeah.
And it's not the destination, it's what happens along the way. Right. And MB, I think that you added the piece about like the comfort in numbers. We have definitely gone on. The reason that we joined our bike team in Baltimore was because we needed more adults to help us support our cycling with kids. We didn't actually join our team until after our daughter was born. And we found a group of people that was just super welcoming and ready to be that supportive group of like, yeah, you're going to go ride your bike. I just got your kid a donut that was the size of their head for their birthday on this bicycling overnight. and just finding those special people who are going to embrace this with you, whether they have kids of their own or not. Um, it's finding that, like it takes a village to raise a child, but no one ever tells you where it is or how to get there. You have to make it.
Yeah.
You have to make that community for yourself, because it brings joy to your experience. And that's what cycling's all about, right? Bringing the joy.
And I know like we've all raced in different capacities, and we have the Rodeo Adventure Posse, and I know I have like separate friends who ride. Do either of you have advice for folks who, may not be ready to like go out and join a cyclocross team or whatever it may be? Like other outlets that you all have had success with or heard for folks to find that community? Like maybe there's a great shop that you know about, or whatever it may be. I'm curious what those outlets are for folks who are just like, I just want people to go ride with. I don't want to race every weekend,
I've actually seen posts on Nextdoor for people saying, "Oh, I like to ride. Is there anybody else out that likes to ride?" And social media, of course, there's different outlets there.
Social media has changed everything, I feel like. I'm thinking about finding existing group rides, even if it's not something that is like a social media like meetup, like, hey, I want to ride a bike. Do you want to ride a bike? But just finding those things that already exist. Like, is there something that's heading out from your local park, and it has been happening for as long as you can remember? You never know who's a part of that. And honestly, some of my best bike friends, I found at the playground. I found them at the playground. I was wearing a cycling shirt. They were wearing a cycling shirt. And I said, you ride bikes? And they said, hey, you ride bikes. And then the rest is history. And I know that I have those support people because they have kids and we have kids, and we all understand the challenge that brings.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I think we've already started kind of diving into how to have kids and honor your own bike experience, because there's this piece of, I really need to go ride my bike, but does that make me a bad parent? I'm leaving. I need to get away from my children. Is that wrong of me to feel that way? I'll pass this over to the two of you because that's a loaded question.
Yeah, and I think I raised this point, I think, Ashlea, when you and I were just doing some planning, about really struggling with feeling guilt around it a lot. I work a lot during the week, and my time on the weekend is when I want to be with my family and my kid too, but it's also the time that I have if I want to get out on any sort of a decent ride. And I inherently know that I need to do that, and I'm a nicer person, and we all need to have things for ourselves. But Ashlea, you reminded me, that's self-care, right? And that our kids need to see us doing those things too. And I think just naturally as parents, we can tell that to other people, but we forget to tell ourselves. So I needed to hear Ashlea say that, and like I need to hear my wife and my friends say that. And I think we all need to remember to tell ourselves more often too, that we're taking care of ourselves, and if we're not doing that, if we're feeling that sense of guilt and like staying home and not getting out on our bikes, like I know that I'm not the person I need to be for everyone around me. So it's having people to remind you of that for me is key.
Yeah. I think, the airlines have it right when they say, you put your oxygen mask on first and help someone else. And I think that's true. Like, self-care is not selfish. It's needed. It's necessary. It's what helps you be a better parent, a better partner. Like, you can't pour from an empty cup. So you've got to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And I think it also means, as a parent, it means adjusting your expectations. Like, okay, I used to be able to go out and pre-kids, I would do these 4 or 5 hour rides, both weekend days. And it's like, well, that's not quite feasible anymore. So it's about, if you have a partner, like, it's about negotiating that time and knowing that it's important for both you and for your partner to get those times to kind of refill your cup. So I guess my thing is, like, you take care of yourself. It'll make you a better parent. It'll make you a better partner, and your kids, and it's modeling for your kids.
Yeah, and I can see, speaking of modeling, like MB, this is you down in the bottom left-hand corner getting ready to, well, you looks like you just got back from like a totally epic
It
ride,
looks
right?
like Mid-South.
Yeah.
That is right.
And being that model, being that like, hey, look, I just went and I did this really hard thing and I'm exhausted, but I'm happy. And this feels good to go and do hard things, and you can do hard things too. Um, and over here on the top right-hand corner, this is our family bike
I
trainer
love
room,
that.
aka my bedroom. And just like, hey kids, guess what? Mom and dad, we're going to be on our bikes for the next hour. And if you want to hang out with us, we would love for you to be with us. And we'll even put on your favorite show, which again kind of sounds like that gummy bear bribing, right? But sometimes if it means you're going to be on your bike and you're going to be practicing that pedaling, practicing those skills, because for our son, it's totally practicing those skills, but also feeling included. Like, yeah, this is what mom and dad do because they love to emulate us. This is what my parents do. This is what the adults in my life love to do. And they love me and they love to do this, and it makes them feel good. And I want to be a part of it. And then you can see them following that along. Like I used to carry my daughter everywhere during bike races. When I had my son, everything was too crazy and I couldn't carry them. I couldn't carry him because I didn't have time to get him on my back before my daughter was like ripping things apart. Um, but just like seeing them along for the ride and trying to put on your bib shorts and doing what you do is really a special thing. And even if then they go on, Kimberly, to not want to bicycle at all, right? You know that they at least have that base to draw off of.
And
Yeah.
that hopefully they'll be able to find their own thing, right? It doesn't have to be that this is their thing, but that they see the
Yeah,
importance of having something that's yours and making
yeah.
space for that.
And they understand that if you have something that you love, you have to work for it and you have to work hard. And sometimes that, if they see you having that struggle, that's powerful. So, all right. Any other words of wisdom on how to have kids and ride bicycles for yourself?
I think you all have mentioned it, but just planning ahead and getting things on the calendar and
Yeah.
keeping communication
Yep.
open
And
with
being,
partner or whoever it may be.
yeah. And like if it's childcare, if it's parents and grandparents and all that, just having that support system, again, back to the village.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, you can do it. You can do this. If you have children and you haven't been able to get back out and be the cyclist you want to be, you can do it. It might look different, but you can do it. If you are getting ready to have children, you can do this. It's going to be different. Being a parent is being a superhero. It takes superhuman strength to be a parent. And if you haven't had children yet, and you're thinking maybe someday I want to have kids, you can do it. You can do all of these things. It takes a little bit extra planning and changing your expectations and having some supports.
And I would say I want to hear other people's tips or questions. We have some links on our Instagram. I think where we link this presentation. And I would say if you're hesitant or if you're finding it hard, like reach out to us as well on the Posse. We're always looking for people to ride with. We can help you figure out who that community might be if you're struggling with it.
Yeah. And we don't have all the answers, but building up a community of parents who have some knowledge, who've tried things, that's pretty great to know that you have supports around you. And we have some resources and links to some of the stories from people who have tried things and who have a base knowledge. And this is certainly not an exhaustive list. It's just the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, thank you so much for being with us and watching our video, and reach out. We are here for you, and we need you. If anybody has tried that toe strap, that toe behind strap for an emerging rider, I want to know if it works because I want to try it.
Awesome.
Anybody wants a first bike packing trip, buddy?
Mary Beth is your person.
That's my one dad. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. And hopefully Posse Presents will be back before too long with some more cool topics. I've already seen a request for somebody to do a Posse Presents on Unbound gravel. So it would be cool to have a collaborative community conversation about how was your Unbound gravel experience, or who wants to do it next year. So
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, see you guys next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks.